Is that these messages would help you to encounter, live for, and advance the kingdom of God. Enjoy this week's message.
And say good morning. Hey, it is awesome to be able to be with you guys today. Thank you so much for the opportunity to hang out with you guys and share with you. It is just a privilege to be able to be here. Thank you to Pastor Joel and Jennifer. They are amazing people. I don't know if you realize this, but being a pastor can be difficult. It can be very hard. There's a lot of good that comes with it, but a lot of pain that comes with it. And your wonderful pastors, Joel and Jennifer, do an amazing job. Would you do me a favor and just give them an outrageous, huge hand? Thank them for all they do. Come on. Love these guys so much. They are more than just friends and people that we coach. They are partners and family to us, and we love them very much. Hey, a little bit about me. I am the founding pastor of South Hills Church in Southern California. We have 12 locations. We just launched our 12th one in Ohio, so we're across the United States. I also am the founder of Church Boom. We have an initiative called Church Rescue, where we rescue churches across America. 100 to 200 churches per week are closing their doors. Did you hear that? 100 to 200 per week. 84% of churches are in decline. For 9 straight years, America has closed more churches than it's opened, and we want to do something about it, because how many believe that the more America's church closes, the darker America gets? How many used to say, boy, America's not the same place it was 20 years ago? It's not the same place it was 20 months ago. Am I right? Some of the laws being passed, it's like common sense has become a superpower. You're like, what in the world? And so we just want to do all we can to rescue churches. I'm going to talk about that at the end, but I'm the founder of Church Boom, Church Rescue. We're working with churches, and we got leaders on our team. More importantly, I have been married for 32 years. Yeah, come on. To a beautiful Mexican woman. Literally, she's a beautiful Mexican woman. Her parents are from Mexico. She doesn't speak any English, but that helps us get along. I mean, you can't really argue about anything if you can't talk to each other. It's really amazing. And then we have 2 amazing children. And then we have this third one. No, I'm totally playing. And we have 2 granddaughters, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. It is, how many grandparents do we have here? Come on, let me see it. Is it not the best thing on the planet? Come on, it's so much better than parenting. It's God's gift to you for you not killing your own kid. That's really what it is. I was holding my granddaughter recently, and my adult son says to me, Dad, it's like you love her more. I said, no, it's not like I do. I do. You had a good run. It's over for you. So, hey, I want to jump into the Word, but before I do that, would you do me a favor? Would you grab your phone? That's the thing that you're going to be using in a minute to text someone, but act like you're taking notes. That thing, pick it up real quick. Your cell phone, everybody grab your phone. I want to give you a free gift because you guys have partnered with us in the past for rescue. I want to give you a free gift from one of our own lead team members, an amazing book that has sold very well called Unboxed. All you do is just hit the QR code. Come on, hit the QR code. Give your name, give your email, and that's all you got to do. Name and email, don't do anything else. You're going to get a free book coming to you called Unboxed. It is a gift from Church Boom and Church Rescue to say thank you for what you've done in the past. Thank you in advance for what we're going to do today to help rescue churches. So that's there. Just quickly, just put your name and email, and then you're done. You don't need to do everything else there, but make sure that you do that. All right. Hey, let's jump into it, and that's just a free gift to say thank you. But let's jump into it. If you have a Bible, I want you to go to 1 Samuel 17. If you have a Bible, go to 1 Samuel 17. If you don't have a Bible, next time at a hotel, get one. They're free. I steal them all the time, and then I sell them on eBay. It's a little side hustle I have. And so a while back, now listen, a while back, I am going down the road, and I hate being late. I love being on time, and I hate being late. So I'm going down the freeway in Southern California, and I am late to a speaking engagement. Now stay with me on this story. And I'm flying down the freeway doing a nice, good Christian 95. And as I'm flying down the freeway doing a 95, I'm beginning to say prayers in my head. God, don't let me get caught. How many have ever been speeding or ran a yellow light and said a quick prayer? Come on. Lord, as I break the law, may you be with me. So I'm flying down the freeway doing a nice Christian 95, and all of a sudden I look up and I see red and blue lights. And I'm like, oh my goodness, now I'm gonna get a ticket, and it's gonna make me even more late, on and on and on. So what do? I punched it. No, I'm joking, I'm playing. But that would have been awesome though. You see it on the news. Anyway, so all of a sudden now I got pulled over. So I pull over, he gets out of his highway patrol car, starts walking towards me, and I look over and I see my Bible sitting there. Now, I know you're gonna all judge me, but I wanna be honest with you. And by the way, don't you love it when a pastor says, can I be honest with you? Because I'm always thinking, what have you been doing up to this point? But anyway, so I'm holding, I got my Bible right there. I know this is bad, you're all gonna judge me. He's walking up, I take my Bible and I put it on the dashboard. How bad is that? Because maybe, I'm thinking, maybe he's one of us. You know what I mean? He sees the Bible, let me off the hook, and so I put it up there. And of course, it's got to look like a social media devotion, so I put a cup of tea and a candle. And so he comes walking up, and he says to me, license and registration, please. So I give my license and registration. He starts talking to me. Now listen, stay with me. He's looking, looking down in the window, and then he keeps eyeing my Bible. And he keeps looking at it over and over on the dashboard. And I'm thinking, I got him. This is great, And then he goes, I'll be back in a second. He goes back to his car. I look in the mirror, and he's writing me a ticket. And I'm thinking, dude, what happened? I thought you were one of us, And so he walks back over, sign here, do this, give my license registration back, blah, 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 gives me a bunch of instructions. And then at the very end, he keeps looking at my Bible. At the very end, he says, okay, man, have a good day and drive safely. And he starts walking away. He leans his, watch this, now stay with me. He leans his head back in the window, points at my Bible and said, oh, by the way, read Romans 13:1. Now, I don't have all the Bible memorized, but he takes off, I open it up, obey the laws of the land. My luck, I had to get a Christian cop. Mistake. What he was really telling me is, hey, buddy, you might want to follow all of the Bible, not just part of the Bible. You ever notice how easy it is to follow part of it, but not all of it? Hey, how many love God's forgiveness for all the dumb things we do? How many love God's amazing grace when he wants you to give it to someone who hurt you? Not so amazing then. Hey, how many love the scripture that says he wants to open up the window of heaven and pour out a bucket of blessing on your life? Anybody love that bucket of blessing idea? Oh, but by the way, you got to tithe and be generous. Oh, wait, I don't know if I like that idea. We like one part, but we don't like the other part. We do that with God's word, but you know what else we do? We have a way of believing God's promises. There's 3,000 of them. Believing God's promises more for other people than we believe them for ourselves. We do. Hey, God's really with you. God's got a call in your life. He's going to come through. You can trust him. God made you for greatness. And then we look at our own life and we don't feel that way. That's as old as the Bible. You can go back almost 3,500 years ago to a story, way back 3,500 years ago, of a story of David and Goliath. Many of you know the story. Even if you're new to church, you've probably heard the story. Let me give you how the story goes down. There's a valley there in Israel. I've been there. And on this side over here, down the valley, you've got the Philistines led by Goliath, who's 9'6" tall. The Philistines are the bad guys. Say bad guys with me. Okay, they're the bad guys, okay? And they got this Goliath. He comes out every day. He taunts God, and mocks the Israel army. On the other side, you've got the Israel army. They're totally afraid. They don't want to fight the Philistines, and they sure don't want to fight Goliath. So there's a standoff. They're like, we're not going down there and fight. And he just keeps mocking God and mocking them. Up in the mountains a few miles away, there's a guy named Jesse who's got a bunch of sons. One of those sons is named David. He brings his sons together and says, okay, all you sons, you got to go fight in the army too. You got to go battle against the Philistines. So David, who we know is somewhere between 17 and 19 because he didn't take the consensus that year. To take the consensus, you have to be 20. So he's about 17 to 19. He's a teenager. And his dad says, everybody, all the brothers, the dad says, go fight. So they all take up, but not you, David. You're too small. You're only like 17, 18 years old. There's nothing you can do to help fight. You've never fought before. You stay here and tend the sheep. How demeaning is that? Everybody gets to fight, but you tend the sheep. Nice and cute like. And then the dad comes out a little bit later and says, oh, David, I want you to take this basket of bread and cheese over to your brothers. Now think about that. Think about this. You go deliver bread and cheese because you're not a warrior. So he's got to grab the basket like Little Red Riding Hood, and he's got to go down into the valley and deliver it to the brothers. He gives the bread and cheese to the brothers, and they're all sitting on the sideline doing nothing. The Israel army is doing nothing because they're afraid. And here's where we pick up the story. Verse 24. David arrives on the scene. Brothers are afraid. Israel army is not fighting. They're all afraid. As soon as the Israel army saw him, they began to run away in fright. Have you seen the giant, the men asked? He comes out each day to defy Israel. The king has offered a huge reward to anyone who kills him. David asked the soldiers standing nearby, what will a man get for killing the Philistine and ending the defiance of Israel? Who is the pagan Philistine anyway that he is allowed to defy the armies of the living God? David shows up and goes, what in the world are you guys doing? Why aren't you fighting? Because here's the thing. They chose not to fight. Now this is important because if they don't fight, obviously they could live if they don't fight. But here's the deal. If they choose not to fight, they have to become slaves to the Philistines. And here's what's going on in the army's head. We'd rather be slaves to the Philistines than dead. And David comes along and goes, what are you guys doing? And here's point one. I want you to write this down, take some notes, is that David, what others chose to accept, David chose to reject. Say it out loud with me. Help me out. What others chose to what? Come on. What others chose to what? David chose to reject. Okay, here's the thing. Stay with me. Stay with me. David shows up on the scene and says, why aren't you guys fighting? Oh, because we'd rather just live. And David goes, I'm not going to become a slave. That's not living. What you guys are accepting for your life is not what God has for my life. And David says, man, I'm rejecting that idea. I'm not doing that. How many times do we accept so much less than God's best for our life? Come on, how many times do we do that? How many times do we accept so much less than God's best for our life? Okay, maybe this is the best, I guess this is the best my marriage will get. I guess this is the best my finances will get. I guess this is the biggest education I could get. I guess this is the best my life is going to get in this way. And we end up accepting so much less. And David comes along and says, I'm not accepting a slavery to this problem. I'm not going to be a slave to debt and a slave to an addiction, and I'm not going to have a bad marriage and all this other stuff. I reject all of that, and I want so much more for my life. You see, that was what David was doing. What a thing for you. Listen to me. I got to believe in here that whether you're 15 years old in here or 85 years old in here, God's not done with you. Come on. When God's done with you, you'll be dead. Until then, I believe that God's got something for your life. And you've got to learn to accept more. God's got something for you. Let me tell you something. All the women, where's the beautiful women of the house? Come on. Wow. I speak in a lot of churches. That is number one worst response from women. They're usually the loud one. We're going to try that again. Where's all the women in the house? Yeah. All right. Pretend you just saw Bradley Cooper or Chris Sonksen, just some good-looking guy. Okay, women, listen to me. Okay, you are a daughter of the Prince of Peace. You are a daughter of the living King. And men, all the men in the house, you are a son of the Alpha and the Omega, the creator of the universe. And I think it's time that you and I just start acting like it. We've got to walk in the fact that, hey, I am a child of God. I am a daughter of the Prince of Peace. I'm a son of the living God. I'm walking in that, and God's got more for my life, better finances, better education, better career, better improvement in my family, improvement in my marriage, because that's the God that I serve. And I am not going to accept less than God's best. That's what the army was doing. And David's like, no, I'm not going to do that. We need to do the same thing and go, oh, no. You may accept less in your life. I'm not going to. And you know what we do? We let so many things get in the way, don't we? We let fear get in the way. Anybody identify with that? We let doubt get in the way, come on, of all God has for our life. We let so many things get in the way. And I got to believe that there are books in here that have not yet been written. There are songs in here that have not yet been composed. There are business ideas that could finance the kingdom and rescue millions of churches, but we haven't done it because we live in fear or doubt or disbelief in ourselves. And that is not the God that we serve. And you know what else we bow to sometimes? Other people's opinions. Am I right? You know what I've noticed? People will always drag you down to a level that's comfortable for themselves because your desire for excellence threatens their mediocrity. And that's why that happens. I remember I do a lot of flying and fly about 150 to 200 times a year. That's a lot of flying. And 150 to 200 flights a year is what I do. And I got to tell you, there's this thing at these big airlines like Dallas or Airports Dallas or LAX or whatever. They have these things called Admiral Lounge. How many have ever heard of the Admiral Lounge? Okay, a couple of you. Admiral Lounge is this place. I'm telling you, it's unreal. It's at the airport. And the Admiral Lounge is this place that when you walk in, there is a masseuse, there is a restaurant, there is a place for you to sleep, there are showers, there's a guacamole bar. It is heaven in an airport. It's amazing. Now, a few years ago, I've been flying like this for the last 15 years of my life. I had no idea what the Admiral Lounge was. I thought it was for pilots, because doesn't it sound pilot-y? Admiral, that doesn't sound like it's for me. So I'm sitting there a few years ago, okay, just sitting there in the terminal. And by the way, isn't that the worst word you want to hear before you get on a flight, the word terminal? Just thinking out loud, but anyway. So I'm sitting there, waiting for my flight, and it gets delayed. I see a buddy I haven't seen in a long time. We give each other a hug. Dude, I haven't seen him forever. He goes, man, I'm delayed too. Hey, he goes, man, let's go in the Admiral Lounge. I said, what are you talking about? We can't go in there. That's for pilots. He's like, dude, it's not for pilots. It's for people that fly a lot like us. What are you talking about? He's cracking up at me that I have no idea after all these years what it is. He goes, come on, man, what are you, crazy? So we go inside there. I'm telling you, doors opened up and you could hear the angels. It was amazing. You walk in and I'm like, this is unreal. Literally it's unreal. And the lady behind the counter is like, okay, and what is your name, sir? And she takes his name. She goes, is this your guest? Yeah, this is my guest. And what's your name? My name's Chris Sonksen. She goes, listen to this. She goes, oh, Mr. Sonksen. She goes, you've been a member for 7 years. 7 years I have been a member. For 7 years, I have the right to walk inside of that door. Is that what you're telling me? For 7 years, I'm hanging out over here in front of the McDonald's, all run down, over here, hanging out with the bottom of the Titanic with Leonardo DiCaprio. Is that what you're telling me? When I could have been over here with the lady with the necklace, that's what you're saying? See, here's the thing. You ever thought about this? That maybe there's an Admiral Lounge that God wants you to walk into today. You've been a member for 7 years. He's just waiting for you to use your membership. Time for you to walk in to all that God has for your life. David said, I'm rejecting that idea. Let's go back to the story. So David rejects it. He tells him, you guys are crazy. We gotta do something about this Philistine. Saul, the king, overhears the conversation, calls David over. Now David, little 17, 18-year-old David, has a conversation with the king of Israel, the first king of Israel. And look how the story goes. I love this conversation that David has with Saul. Look at what it says. It says, don't worry. It says, I love this is David. Now imagine 18-year-old David, 17-year-old David with the king, okay, who's a warrior. Don't worry about this Philistine, David told Saul. I'll go fight him. Saul's thinking, you little punk. Come on, he's got to be thinking that. Look at that. Don't be ridiculous, Saul, the king replies. There's no way you can fight this Philistine and possibly win. You're only a boy, and he's been a man of war since youth. And I love this next part. But David persisted. I've been taking care of my father's sheep. Like, oh, well, okay. You've been a shepherd. Let's get to work. I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goats. And he said, when a lion or a bear come to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. I love this. I have done this to both the lion and the bear, and I will do it to this pagan Philistine. Come on, man. This 17-year-old kid's got some serious confidence in God because his life is on the line. And he says, I've done this, and I'll do this to this pagan Philistine, for he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from the Philistine. I love this next point. Write it down, take a picture of it, do whatever it is that you do. But I love this next point is that David understood something, that the battle belonged to the Lord, but the fight belonged to him. Yeah. You see the difference? The battle belonged to the Lord, but the fight belonged to him. David said, I I ripped apart the lion. I ripped apart the bear, but it was the Lord that rescued me. And a couple verses later, he says, it is the Lord's battle anyway. David understood something. He said, hey, the battle belongs to the Lord, but the fight belongs to me. I got to do something. And I don't know what you're facing right now or what's happening in your life, but please understand something. The battle belongs to the Lord. God loves you. Even if you're new to this church and like, I don't even know God. He loves you and he's fighting, he's battling for you. But the fight belongs to you and I. That may mean that, hey, I've got to get some counseling. I got to get some help in my marriage. I got to get some financial advice. I got to go back to school. The battle belongs to the Lord, but the fight belongs to me. And that's the same thing with church rescue, as Pastor Joel mentioned. Oh, yeah, the battle belongs to the Lord. It's his church, but the fight belongs to us. We can't watch churches die in America and do nothing. Let me tell you something, folks. That is not a conversation I want to have with Jesus when I meet him. Hey, my bride was dying, and you did what? Nothing? That's a big deal. The battle belongs to the Lord, but the fight belongs to us. A few years back, I live right near the ocean in Southern California, San Clemente Beach. And right next to us, there's Camp Pendleton, and they did this big sprint triathlon, 25 miles riding a bike, like 5 miles running, and a mile swimming in the ocean. And I don't know if you ever swam in the ocean, but it is way different than swimming in a pool. You got to go a half mile out and a half mile back. On that day, the waves were setting back. Now, I surf, and so please understand, when the waves set really far back and you get hit, you go down 15, 18 feet. You come back up, and you're gasping for air, and another wave comes. If they're crashing a little closer to the shore, you go down 8 feet and you spring right back up. So it's a little safer. The waves were massive that day, and that meant going out was one thing, but coming in, we were going to get destroyed. And I'll never forget, I went there with a bunch of our staff members. We all did this. We're going to do it. We're warriors. And we're standing there waiting for the gun to go off because there's like little heats of 50 people at a time. I'm standing next to a guy. I have no idea who he is. And he looks at me. He's like, hey, man, you ever done this before? And we're like 30 seconds before we start swimming. That's the first part of the whole thing. I go, no, I've never done this before. It's my first time in my life. I go, what about you? He goes, oh, yeah, this is my third one this year. Then he goes, yeah, but I've never seen waves like that. I'm like, oh, well, that's encouraging. Great. So I head on out there half mile, and now we got a half mile back. Jet skis are picking people up because they're starting to drown. The guy that was mouthing off to me on the left side, he got picked up too. And I looked around, and the waves were coming, and I was right in the middle of them coming back, and I was out of breath. And I realized there's no jet skis left. The last one was taken off this guy over here. I didn't know this guy, and I'm yelling out, come on, God needs me more than he does that guy. And I'm a pastor, let him go. And man, I got to tell you, I honestly was scared to death. And man, the whole time I am praying, God help me, and I'm paddling, praying, paddling. But never once did I stop paddling because I was just praying. Lord, save me. It just didn't happen. Because I prayed, but I also did what? Paddle. Because I know that the battle belongs to the Lord, but the fight belongs to us. You got to pray and you got to paddle. Whatever you're facing in your life, and whatever thing we face together, we got to pray and we got to paddle. Now, here's the interesting thing. You ever thought about this? That Goliath wasn't, listen, this is important. Goliath wasn't David's greatest battle. Goliath was David's greatest blessing. Because once he defeated that Goliath, listen to what happened. He received $750 million as a reward in modern times. $750 million. He got the daughter of the king as his wife, and he didn't have to pay taxes for the rest of his life. I live in California. That would have been enough right there. Tax-free, bring it on, Goliath. But here's the thing, is that once David defeated Goliath, all this stuff started to happen. David's greatest reward was Goliath. It wasn't his greatest battle. It was his greatest blessing. But because behind that Goliath was so much blessing. I don't know what you're facing. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what battle you're standing against today. But I'm telling you, if you'll fight against that thing, the battle belongs to the Lord. The fight belongs to you. If you fight that thing and you conquer your Goliath, there's a reward coming that you would not imagine. There is a reward behind every Goliath. And we always sing, and the other thing is interesting is we always sing in Sunday school, children, God sent David to kill Goliath. There's a little song that says, God sent David to kill Goliath. You ever thought about this? Listen, maybe God didn't send David to kill Goliath, but that God sent Goliath to reveal David. It revealed who he really was. Who are you, David? Are you strong enough to be the second king, which he became? Are you strong enough to fight? When there's a battle, are you going to run? When there's a fight, are you going to get involved or are you going to stand on the sideline? What are you going to do, David? And I think God would say the same thing to you. If Jesus could come and sit next to each of us right now for a minute, he says, whatever you're facing, are you ready to fight? In this battle that we have in America, are you ready to fight that too? Are you ready to fight? Are you ready to get in the game? I think that's what Jesus would ask us, because it's going to reveal who we really are. Let's go back to the story. Remember, David talks to the king and says, I can do it. I take care of sheep, and that whole thing. And then what does the king say? The king says, okay, finally, he lets him have a chance. He's like, all right, here, put on this armor. David says, this armor doesn't fit me. David grabs a slingshot. It's not a normal kind of slingshot, but we'll just go with that for now since it takes a long time to explain it. And he bends down into the stream, and he picks out 5 stones, 5 rocks, and he puts them in his bag. And he heads out, not with a sword, a spear, or a javelin. He heads out with a slingshot and 5 rocks. You got to be thinking, is he a Boy Scout or what's going on here? Now, look what happens in this amazing conversation between David and Goliath. David replied to the Philistine, you come to me with the sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you, come on folks, in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of the army of Israel, whom you have defied. Today the Lord will conquer you, and I will, look at this, I will kill you, cut off your head, and then I will give the dead bodies of your men to the birds and wild animals. This is the first episode of The Walking Dead. You want to know where they got it? Here it is. It all happened right here. And the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel, and everyone assembled will know that the Lord rescues his people, but not with the sword, but the Lord, there he goes again. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give it to us. As Goliath moved closer to attack, David quickly ran to him, reaching into his shepherd's bag. Remember that? There was 5 stones. He took out one of them. He hurled it with a sling and hit the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank in. The Goliath stumbled and faced down on the ground, and ultimately he died. Now, here's the thing, last thing I wanted to share with you, and then we're going to turn the corner and talk about how we all can be a part of rescuing churches, which I just believe Jesus wants us to do. And that is this, write this down or take notes, whatever. When others stood on the sideline, David stood on the front line. David got in the battle. David fought. David went for it. He didn't stand on the sideline. He didn't wait for everybody else to do their part. He just said, I'm going to get in. I think we have to do that with our personal life. I think we can't stand on the sideline and say, well, God, I hope you fix my marriage. God's going, I hope you fix it. Get to work. I'll do my part. Now, you got to do your part, or your finances, or the problem that we're talking about today, the rescue. You're going to stand on the sideline, or you're going to get in the game. When others stood on the sideline, David stood on the front line, and David got in. And he said, man, I'm going to fight, and I'm going after it. You know what's interesting is this. Is we often, now listen, don't move. We often focus on the bag, the 5 stones in the slingshot. We often focus on the bag and we ignore the basket. The bag had the 5 stones, the basket had the food. You ever thought about this? David didn't come down the mountain to fight. David came down the mountain to serve. You ever thought about that? That's the only reason he was there. He was only there to serve. It was the basket, the serving. It was the basket that got him the reward of $750 million. It was the basket that got him tax-free. It was the basket that got him his wife. It was the basket that brought him before the king. And it was the basket that brought him on the stage with Goliath and helped him become the second king of Israel. David did not come down the mountain to fight. He came down the mountain to serve. And it was the serving that opened up everything else for his life. The same with us. It started with that. It started with the serving. God, here I am. Take me. I'm all yours. And I want to encourage each of us here today. I don't know where you're at with God. I don't know where you're at with the Lord. Maybe this is all new, whatever. All I know is God is radically in love with you. And man, if you would just give him a chance and just say, God, I'm going all in. I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I got invited to a youth group when I was 14 years old. I gave my life to Christ. My dad said, you'll never make it as a pastor and you'll never make it in this career. And that's the kind of house I grew up in and kind of situation I grew up. But here's the thing. But I believe that God had something special for my life. And I believe the same thing for you. And it all starts with serving. God, I'm ready to serve in this church. I'm ready to give in this church. I'm ready to be a leader in this church. I'm ready to help in this church. God, I'm ready to serve. I'm ready to reach out to my neighbor and my coworker, because the greatest blessing lies not in the bag, but in the basket. It all started with the basket. Now, we all have things that we're facing, and I just want to encourage you. Face them with strength. Go after them. Don't stand on the sideline, get on the front line. Don't wait for someone else to do something. You jump in and you fight and go after everything God has for your life, because he's not done with you and he is so in love with you. And God wants to use everything, your time, talent, resources, influence, to do amazing things for the kingdom. Just serve him with all your heart. Now, there's a problem that we all have. If we went around, every one of us could talk about an issue in our own heart. But there is an issue that we all have that Pastor Joel mentioned, and that is, it's a responsibility for all of us, and that is this issue of churches in America. A few years ago, I got together with some guys from Church Boom and some other guys. We all got together in Dallas, Texas, and we just began to realize, man, America's churches are in a lot of trouble. You guys, I don't know if you realize this. We're not the fastest growing religion in America. Muslim is in America. We are 16 years away from having more mosques than Christian churches. That's the speed in the last 30 years. Folks, it's unbelievable. Look at this graphic for me. Put it up there. There's some of the headlines real quick. There we go. Leave it up there for me. Look what it says. The America church is dying. You can Google this. Go home and Google it. America church is dying. Top left, church going and belief in America stand at a historic low. Look what Fox News says on the right. America's church is closing faster than new ones can open. ABC Denver News, churches closing their doors in record numbers. The Washington Post, church membership has fallen below the majority for the first time in nearly a century. Folks, if you dig down into these articles, some of them Christian, some of them not Christian, here's what you're going to find. As I said, America's closing 100 to 200 churches per Sunday. How many know we need to do something about that? Okay, it might not be a big deal to you, but folks, to your kids and grandkids, it's going to be a different America if we don't step in. I'm stepping in. And we need to do something. We found out that 84% of churches are in decline. 9 straight years in a row. 9 straight years in a row. America's closed more churches than it has opened. So we got together, and look at this one right here. This is since 2000 to 2020. The average church in America in 2000, 137. It's all the way down to 65 now. And it's continuing to plummet. Folks, you got a great church here. You're looking around going, we got a problem. You don't, because you have a great leader, an amazing leader. But this is not the story in America. And how many believe, come on, how many believe we can't stand on the sideline? We got to get on the front line. Come on. Come on, do we or not? Because I honestly believe revelation requires responsibility. Revelation is when you become aware of something. When you become aware of something, that requires a responsibility. It's biblical. We got to do something about it, and we are losing people like crazy. Less than half of America is even claiming a faith. That's the first time ever in our history. 1,500 pastors a month are leaving the ministry from discouragement. So what did we do? We got together with some guys, and I'm like, hey, man, what can we do about this? These are pastors from all over America. Some have monster churches. And we're sitting there like, what could we do? So we're like, well, here's all the problems. So we came up with this idea. I remember going, hey, man, what if we come up with this thing like, and I asked the pastors, I'm like, bar rescue? We could do a church rescue. And they're all looking at me like, no, I've never heard of bar rescue. I'm like, yeah, liars. And don't watch it at home. And they go in, they rescue the bar. What if we rescue churches? And what if we take churches that are like 20, 30, 40 and dying, and we start working with them for a whole year, and we don't even charge them? And what if they need emergency funding, like the church he was talking about, Pastor Joel, with the cement floor, or a roof that's leaking, or toilets that are backing up, or whatever? What if we gave them money and then coaching and then help lift them up? And then what if in the middle of that 1 year, we took them on a 4-day soul care retreat to the Rocky Mountains just to bless them and love them? And then the guys are like, great, how are we going to pay for it? I said, I have no idea, but didn't it sound great? And I said, well, what if we get healthy churches to help the unhealthy churches? Our church jumped up when we first started. We wrote a check for $200,000 to say, hey, man, we're going to help start rescuing churches. And churches have been helping and helping and helping and helping in big, massive ways. Just this last week, 96 more churches jumped into the rescue initiative and said, we need help. 96 more churches have reached out just this last week. And folks, we need your help. And we've been doing this now for 2 years and 2 months, rescuing churches. And I need your help. Here's a couple stories real quick. Look at this one real quick. Here's my buddy right here, Alex. Alex is in San Antonio, Texas. He calls us up, man, hey, my church is running 40, 50 people. I don't know what to do. I think we might have to close. We don't have no money, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to lose another lighthouse if we don't step in, folks. And how many know we need more lighthouses in America? Because America's going crazy on us. And we got to do something, man. We can all complain about it, go on social media, or we can actually do something. And this is doing something. So we said, man, get in the rescue program. Okay, 2 weeks ago, he had 195 people in his church. Come on, people, that's a rescued church. Here's another one right here. My buddy Charles right here from Phoenix, Arizona. He calls us up, man, we need help. We're dying. Man, we're meeting in a school and all sorts of stuff, just all sorts of problems. I just saw him 2-3 weeks ago. Man, they had 155 people in their church, and 6 months ago, they were going to close their doors forever. And that's a rescued church, folks. Leave that up there. Leave that up there. There's a church, one of the very first churches we rescued a couple of years ago was in Evansville, Indiana. Pastor calls us up. I took the call. He's crying on the phone. I feel like a loser, a failure. I feel like a bum. I don't know what I'm doing. And he literally told me, he goes, I have 20 people left in our church. We're just going to give it back to the bank. I don't know what else to do. I said, Brian, I go, hang in there, man. Put him in the rescue program, gave him some money, gave him some coaching, helped him out. This is one of, in the last 2 years, we're up over 500 churches we've rescued. This is one of them. This is them just a few months ago on Easter, from 20 people to that. That's a rescued church. They ain't closing their doors now. Folks, we believe that rescued churches rescue America. We believe that rescued churches rescue people. And I want to show you this quick little video of a church we rescued just outside of Detroit with Pastor Muda. This is one of hundreds of churches that we're rescuing. We want to do everything we can, because like I said, if you're over 50 years old, it ain't going to make much difference to you. But your kids and grandkids are headed in a direction. We got to do something. We have to do something. Revelation requires responsibility.
Thank you for listening to the Waymaker Podcast. To simply connect, or if this message ministered to you and you would like to support the ministry, you can simply go to waymakerchurch.org.